What is your biggest insecurity?
That I'm not good enough.
Period?
That I'm not good enough. That's a thought.
At everything?
At everything.
Okay.
The same way as you being driven by the paranoia of whether the S&P is going to move like aggressively tomorrow, or whether someone's going to like break into the house. One of the thoughts that I have a lot of the time is like, what if I'm not good enough? Like, what if this failure is some sort of judgment on me as a person? What if that lack of performance, what if that lack of recognition, what if that lack of actualization, what if that poorly spoken sentence, what if all of those things, I'm like, what if I'm not good enough? I'm working through it.
What if?
Well, if you actually run it down, I mean, it's a completely illogical fear. Like, because the fear is, if I'm not good enough, I'll be cast out and no one will like me and no one will care about me and I'll be on my own and I'll die. Like, that's the embodied sense, right? That's the like limbic feeling. But if you actually step in and fact check it, you go, nothing. But overcoming the way that you feel when that thing happens and actually allowing yourself to have that equanimity to be like, I'll be fine. Like, there's nothing to worry about. But yeah, that I'm not good enough is a big one.
And when is the last time you cried?
Oh, dude. I shed a tear yesterday when I told Alex's story on the podcast. Therapy, week and a half ago. Watching Klaus, the Christmas movie. Watching an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. I cry pretty regularly. I'm a pretty emotional person.
I would love to hear that story, but I'm afraid we...
Which one? What's
the one you cried when you were telling Alex?
It wasn't anything big. It was just like me... I think it was something that I really cared about. It's like I was reminiscing about some like person that inspired me. And I cry pretty regularly. I'm still like, that's another degree of like, I still haven't got to that stage of being able to do it on the show. Like, it makes me feel so like weak and vulnerable. And I hate it. I hate that, like, oh fuck, like,
yeah,
my emotions are rising to the surface again, because having emotions to me is at least in some ways seen as being like, oh, this makes me weak or vulnerable or less.
Do you think guys should be forthright about their crying? Should they cry in front of girls?
I think they should be forthright about whatever they are, because anything else is just fucking posturing. Anything else is just you performing. And is that what you really want? Like, to look back on life and go, I was never myself, but at least no one ever saw the failings of me. Is that really like fucking heroism to you? Because it's not to me. And that's one of the things. Like, if I could change one of the things, if I could give a piece of advice to me from 10 years ago, it would be fear less. Because I fear a lot. I feared a lot. And that's still one of the like recurring themes. Even now, fucking 2 million person YouTube channel and Peterson and Goggins and Rogan and all the rest of the stuff. It's still there. And I'm like, right, okay, like, how can I continue to unpack this? And maybe that, we asked at the very beginning, why should people listen to you? And it's a really good question that haven't been asked before. Like, I guess first off, I didn't ask anyone to listen to me. Like, I just did it because I wanted to learn. And then people seem to like learning along with me too. But the other reason, maybe why they do listen, at least in some regard, is like, I'm failing forward, learning out loud, practicing in public. Like, I'm doing all of this in as open of a way as I can. I could still be way more open. I'm not Destiny open, but I'm like, I'm as open as I can be about this. And maybe people like, I don't know, see a version, like see someone going on a journey that they can resonate with, and maybe that helps, I guess.
Amazing.
One quick thing that I saw on Twitter that I wanted to get your opinion on, because it has to do with therapy. This is, quote unquote, a super hot take. It got millions of views. And it says, the normalization of therapy is becoming a bad thing for society. I'm seeing more and more people, 1, use the fact that they are in therapy as a get out of jail free card for awful behavior. 2, believe everything their therapist says as gospel truth with no further research required. 3, equate the act of going to therapy with the actions of being a good person. I'm not saying therapy is bad for everyone, but I am seeing a trend of less personal responsibility for bad behavior and a lot more talk about therapy as the only solution. And it got commented and replied to by an Elon Musk, and this is what he said.
The dart
Bullseye.
emoji. Dude, I think that's a great take. I don't think that's a particularly hot take at all. I think that therapy culture and the normalization of therapy language is dangerous. Like, people have mistaken going to therapy for doing the work. Like, even your therapist will say it's integration after you have these conversations, right? For me, it's been very, very, very illuminating. I've not been doing tons of therapy throughout my entire life, and I maybe should have done more. It's been very, very illuminating. There's very few places, and this is like, I'll fly the flag at least a little bit. There's very few places where you're allowed to be boring. You're not even really allowed to be boring around your friends. Like, if you're having a conversation and your thoughts are messy, one of the things that you learn in therapy is to pay attention to fleeting thoughts and to not believe that you're supposed to have a cohesive narrative or sentence when you open your mouth. Like, you're trying to get stuff which you haven't formed an opinion about or haven't really understood. You're trying to like get it into something that's out there. And that results in you making lots of U-turns and messing up and not really knowing where you're going and maybe circling the same point for like 20 minutes. Even the best friend in the world is going to be like, dude, this fucking sucks. Like, I'll sit here, but like they would say, is this a therapy session? There's very few places that you're allowed to be boring, like emotionally boring and repetitive and messy. And there are very few places in which you can actually be completely 100% this person would be fucking canned by their psychiatry board, license board, if they said the things that I'm saying to them. Like being petty about stuff or talking about things that are unbelievably embarrassing. Like, those things are important. And it's not for everyone. It's not a panacea. Maybe I'm going to find out, maybe I'll change my opinion in like 5 years' time or 1 year's time or 6 months' time. I don't know. But at the moment, it's interesting. And especially if you spend all of your time talking to other people and like being in a place where you don't have to like, oh, and Winston Churchill once said like this fucking thing, like is really, really, really important and good. So not for everybody, but neither's a knife bath.